Hello. Today I am going to go back over a podcast that I did a couple of weeks ago regarding my daughter, Sarah. The reason I'm going to redo this one is I think that the message is important, one, and two, my volume was just really not quite right. And so I'm just going to podcast today in my house and kind of testing my volume out because I have some things coming up where I'm going to be podcasting with someone else, and I want to make sure my volume is working correctly. So, what I was saying when when you couldn't hear me was I was talking about that we currently are having two pandemics more or less side by side. We're having a drug pandemic as well as a viral outbreak. And what's amazing is that the drug outbreak at this time is fentanyl, and it's fentanyl laced with crack, fentanyl laced with cocaine, fentanyl, so it is the new heroin, and most people on the streets at this time are addicted not only to their drug of choice, which I think my daughter's drug of choice is methamphetamine. It's also laced with fentanyl, so it is turning them into a level of junkie that is just unheard of. And you know, my daughter's 41, and they say that if you do not have a come to Jesus moment by the time you're 45, the drugs are going to get you. So that does not. It's very troubling, and I struggle constantly with what I'm feeling about this. So what I want to talk about is in 2020, there were approximately 95,000 lives lost to addiction, to overdose. And during that same time, so 1/6 the number, or roughly there, 659,000 people died of the virus. So this is occurring across all socioeconomic and otherwise backgrounds. This isn't that you know somebody didn't have a good life and therefore they're out there and they're using, and you know it's not like that. What we're seeing overall is about a 10% increase each year. So I'm expecting to see a much larger number for the overdoses this next 2021 season. I'm expecting to see more like 110,000 deaths. In the streets of Philadelphia currently, the drug epidemic is so bad, they call it Kensington Beach, because people are laid out on the sidewalks, or one of the things that you'll see is people standing up, bent over completely in half, and their body parts flailing. It's just something. I mean, it's all I can do to stand it. It really is truly all I can do to stand it. But because I'm personally impacted by drug addiction because of my family member, you know, as a part of me, I can't take my eyes off of it either. So, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, people understand that addiction isn't just, it is kind of a pandemic in its own right now, and there's a lot of us that are impacted. That for me, I do believe that my daughter's probably lied to me and been using drugs for a good portion of her life, from her teenage years on. And I can look back now and I can see the symptoms, but at the time, I was busy trying to, I guess, you know, at one point, I did things like I cut out all alcohol. I decided that any kind of alcohol at all was the same thing as it being my drug of choice, was a glass of wine, for instance, and where I'm telling my daughter to not use anything. So I gave up all substances out of regard and awareness of her, and which I'm very grateful I did, because as I look back over it, there was nothing really in it for me anyway, addiction. But I say that, and addiction, it is something that is happening over and over again throughout my ancestral line, and I suspect also throughout her father's ancestral line. So what's happening right now? Well, what we're experiencing astrologically is this kind of this almost rebellion coming up, right? Where Uranus, and second house just moved to 13 degrees, but was 14 degrees for quite a bit of time. But in the 14 degrees, for me, I was having a lot of anxiety because, that has to do with house and home, and I have Saturn in the second. So, I know limitations when it comes to income. I know limitations when it comes to house and home. I've always had a bit of a struggle. Now, I've been very fortunate. My Jupiter is well placed. I get lucky, and I met my husband. It was like falling out of a 50-story building, landing clean on him, and he took me warts and all, and here I am. 20 years later, we're doing just fine in our marriage. So, what I want to talk about a little bit is her natal chart. I'm not going to show this for her privacy, but one of the areas that she has is she has Saturn in the 12th house, and her Saturn on top of it is debilitated. So, and then she has Pisces influence in her 7th house, where what does she partner with? Well, that's Mercury in Pisces in the 7th house. She partners in that sense with that process of addiction, and hasn't really successfully been in a partnership. Where did this come from? Well, she has Neptune in the 3rd in Sagittarius, where that's going to have to do with your other children, information, things that she was exposed to. And she, at a very young age, had a really difficult, it was difficult because her father and I just really never did get along. We didn't have much in common. And his energy was that he also had issues with addiction. And it shows in her younger years, if I'm using the age progress model, that she in fact experienced some trauma when she was in the age group of 5, 6, 7, 8, to up to age 9, so about 8 years old. And what's interesting is that she was unable to see her father for part of it because her father had abducted her, and she was gone for a year and was actually on a milk carton, and somebody identified her, and her dad was offered the opportunity to return her back to Oregon to avoid prosecution. So that is what in fact happened. So, when you're looking at a chart and you're identifying addiction in your chart, so let me give you some pointers, is that you're going to have some kind of aspect to the 12th with Saturn, some kind of limitation. And of course, Sarah has quite a bit of activity in her 12th house. She has a stellium even in her 12th house. So, a good deal of challenge there for her right off the bat. So, that being a part of, her early childhood challenges. And then another interesting detail in this, Neptune in the 3rd, she was able to tell a really good story. She's able to tell a really good story. I mean, and if you haven't been lied to by a drug addict, it's kind of amazing. They can look you squarely in the face and tell you exactly what you want to hear. And as a parent, you want to hear your child is going to be, that she's okay, that she's anything and everything. You don't want to hear that they're a raving drug addict, do you? Nobody wants that. So, but she is able to tell me things up to and including, no, Mom, I've paid my rent. I don't know why they haven't got the check. It's not me, it's them. And me going back and talking to the landlord and saying, okay, she says she paid her rent. No, she did not pay her rent. Well, she says she mailed a check. If she mailed a check, she's going to need to bring us in another one, So they're just the level of storytelling that has gone on is amazing. But again, Neptune in the 3rd, right, where she provides information that's rather deceptive. And it again points back to that 12th house because it's in hard aspect to the 12th, okay? So when you have a kind of a natural tendency, and until I did astrology, I didn't know some of this. I had a tendency to blame myself for what I felt was going on with her. I tended to see it as something I caused, something I did, which is, codependent for sure, but I'm saying all this because I want other people that are going through this to realize maybe there are things, aspects of your child's life that no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to properly affect and change their lives. Because at some point it is a choice, right? I know I took a chance and made a choice, and it led to change. I don't drink anymore. I did so in honor of my daughter and in honor of the fact that I come from a long line of alcoholics, and why should I continue this process given where I come from? And given what my daughter's going through, I felt like it was upon me to do something about it and not make excuses for myself, but to be clean and sober. So with that, I am going to take this deck here. I'm going to just do a brief pull on the Shadowscape Tarot, and we're just going to ask the tarot. We'll shuffle 3 times. We're just going to ask the tarot to just give us some comfort in this shadowy area of drug addiction. It's a hard one, and a lot of people at this point in time are losing their lives to it, and it seems as if our government, if you will, is turning a blind eye. And I think that unfortunately we live in a system that if you need drugs, there is a shadow government, a shadow process available at a place near you to make it all available. And I just find it rather troubling at a time like this, that not only are we losing people to COVID, but we're also losing people to drug overdose. So, and their lives matter. Their lives matter. It breaks my heart. Now, I am going to put my camera down so that you can see, and I'm going to just get up and take a quick gander at that and make sure where my card placement is versus my camera. Okay, I think that'll do. And there goes my husband's lovely alarm system for he's getting up and going to do some painting on a door. All right, so we'll choose 5 cards for a 6-card reading. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you have not ever used the Shadowscape deck, oh, I just love this deck. This is one of my favorites, really and truly. I've done a lot of self-help readings myself and my lovely co-reader Pearl, and I'm gonna use my 6-card method that she and I came up with. All right, and what do we have as a foundation? The 2 of Cups. It is about relationships. It's about negotiations. It's about wanting for my loved one, any of us, wanting for our loved one, for them to be in a space that's healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? We don't want our loved ones to be in this space. So, it is about a 2 of Cups, okay? It's about relationships. It's about people we love. And where it starts out, 6 of Wands, wanting things wanting action, wanting change. In my case, wanting it to the point that I don't even drink wine, wanting it. Now, the number 6, I kind of find that to be, it also ties back to the Lovers. I find that to be kind of a codependent number. There's something codependent about it. And I can say that codependency, I've helped my daughter up until very recently. And she's in her 40s now. And I finally made some changes myself. So that I'm no longer making it easy for her to continue to be in the drug addiction world. She's going to no longer have, we've provided her housing, we've provided her money, we've purchased vehicles. I mean, you would be shocked what all we've done to try to help her. And really what we did was we delayed by being codependent with her, doing what felt good, we delayed what was needed, and that is that she needs to find her bottom without my assistance. And that's a hard, as a parent, that's a very hard energy to have to get on board with. Okay, and then what we've got here is a Nine of Swords, you know, wanting to do the right thing, okay, having good intentions, being all caught up in the mind, being stuck in a process where we almost just have no business, right? We don't have any business trying to fix someone else. And these two cards are going to go right back here to this card, and then we're going to get into this, the Hierophant, the way we're set up, the structure of things, right? Now the Hierophant, I think of it as the Pope, or it's the 10th house. It's kind of the highest house, you know, and yes, we have an issue. I believe that perhaps from on high, that they are codependent and enabling and even probably participating in the demise of young people or people who have a tendency towards drug addiction. It's like the government views them as throwaways. They're, you know, you let them walk the streets of Kensington, Philadelphia, you know, let them die on the streets, and literally they are, and they do. So, you know, it's a really troubling situation, and, you know, all of us need to be questioning our government and the morals that are taking place here. I myself, I'm not feeling it. I feel like our government does things to keep addiction alive, and this card says it, that they do. You know, brave of me to say probably, and I should be careful because I don't want to have trouble. Right, it is a teamwork process, right? It's them, it's that shadow government, probably a lot of extra money that they don't have to account for that allows them to have a shadow government process. It's teamwork on somebody's part to keep the drugs coming. And in that sense, to not only keep the drugs coming, but to have them get ever so much more potent and deadly. And that to me is like, I want to call stink on whoever and however this came about, that now every single one of the drugs are dirty. My sister is a methadone counselor, and what they're seeing is that it doesn't matter whether you're addicted to crack cocaine or you're addicted to methamphetamine or cocaine proper, it all has fentanyl in it. So, you know, it's turning people into raging addicts, okay? And again, it goes back to being tied to the government, okay? And us in relationships with people we love. You know, it's just disgusting. And then you get the Three of Wands. And you can see, she's standing up over a precipice, looking down, as if she's reminiscing about something that once was and is no longer, right? That you can see the bridge doesn't go all the way across, and there's crosses there. That's a very interesting card in relation to the overdose deaths that we are experiencing right alongside of a pandemic. And I just want people to realize that people that die of COVID are not the only terrible loss that we're experiencing at this time. It's also people that are getting caught up in this really crazy drug scene that's been going on. And with that, I thank you very much. I'm going to put my camera back up. I thank you very much for joining me here today. And I ask that you please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. If you have somebody in your family that has addiction issues, drop me a note. Let's look at their chart. Let's try to understand what's happening instead of maybe blaming yourself, because that's what we do when we're parents and we love our children and we see things going wrong. It might be that it's something well beyond you, and I have to tell you, it's been very healing for me to be able to read my daughter's chart and to understand that this was her challenge to overcome in this lifetime, that in fact this was part of her bigger agreement. It wasn't me at all. And with that, I thank you for joining me here today. Please do hit the like, share, and subscribe button, and please join me on www.twiggie.com, where myself and my lovely co-reader Pearl Rowland would love to give you a reading. Thank you so much for being here today.